Should the patient or the attendants be given a cooling off time before taking consent for an intervention? Friends, this was a suggestion made by the Honorable Court in a recent judgment. In this judgment from the State Consumer Commission, the patient, a known case of uncontrolled diabetes, was brought to the chest physician with complaints of coughing of blood. The chest physician advised a CT chest and sputum for AFB. CT scan revealed consolidation with cavitation. The chest physician advised a bronchoscopy the very next day. The patient is taken up for bronchoscopy, but during the intervention, the patient has profuse bleeding from the right bronchus. The bleeding is controlled and the patient is shifted to the ICU. In the middle of the night, the patient has another bout of bleeding. The patient is stabilized and put on a ventilator. The patient is advised embolization to stop the bleeding, but the relatives refuse consent for the same and transfer the patient Lama to another hospital. The patient is admitted in another hospital for 10 days. Finally, the patient is brought home and dies a few days later. The relatives of the patient file a case of negligence against the chest physician and the hospital. They make allegations about the chest physician not controlling diabetes before the intervention and was in a hurry to perform a bronchoscopy, just relying on one report of sputum AFB, which they allege was against protocol. Furthermore, it was alleged that the chest physician was not reachable when complications occurred. The court found most allegations to be true. What was interesting in this judgment was on perusal of medical records, the court observed that the consent was signed by the patient's mother the previous day, and the patient signed the consent just before he was being taken for the intervention. This, the court said, was not a valid consent and held the chest physician negligent. Friends, there are three broad stages of doctor-patient interaction. First, diagnosis. Second, advice. And third, actual treatment. In diagnosis and treatment, the doctor is a dominant partner and the patient is a passive participant. But during the stage of advice, the patient is also an active participant where the patient is given adequate information about the necessity for the intervention, the pros and cons, and the complications, if any, of the intervention. The patient is also informed about consequences of not giving consent and of alternative protocols available and the reasons for not performing the same. This has to be documented in consent and then signed by the patient. In this judgment, interestingly, the court has gone one step further by suggesting that the patient must be given a cooling off time to go home, digest the information, and if necessary, take another opinion and should not be pressured into giving consents in a hurry. Following such protocols is always appreciated by courts. Thank you.